They're not going to waste any time. Galio is going to be the choice here for Lava.
Wow, that's a really interesting pick. So, as a whole, let's take a look at these compositions, because the Gen G side is one with a very clear side to play for. That's either mid or bot side. You know, a lot of power in that lane, dive potential, CC, considerable amount of damage, really good setup for the Trundle, and you can just leave Rascal alone in that lane. Pre-first back, it's going to be hard, but once he gets some health in Soul Furnace and plated Steel Caps, that top side matchup is not going to be an issue. The Fredda Brionne comp, though, is a little bit harder to read, because there's a lot of different elements here, and on the first look, I don't know if it really is going to come together neatly, because you have some poking parts with the GX and the Zays, but then you have we want to skirmish parts with the Viego and the Galio, and that can come together if you're ahead. But to me, the Gen G comp feels very all-rounded, strong at all points of the game, has a lot of different modes and options, whereas the Fredda Brionne comp is a little more dependent on finding some specific openings or getting one of your poke champions incredulously fed.
Yeah. Definitely a big fan of this on the side of Gen G. They had some issues in their drafts in last week's games, but I think going for kind of an all-around draft against a team that they should be better than is probably a good choice. We'll see if they can deal with the power of Ziggs and Jace on this patch, which can be very obnoxious, especially from ahead, but Fredda Brionne not always getting there. So we'll have to see how it does go as game number 1 will start up right now. Gen G against Fredda Brionne.
Interesting to see that Rascal's gone for the Grasp of the Undying here, as I personally would have expected the Spellbook, especially into a matchup like Jace, but trying to make the most of possible trading windows when Jace actually does go in for more melee action. And yeah, as I said, I think the Gen G draft very versatile as well, because it's a team fight draft, but not one that doesn't come online until later, right? Like all these champions have considerable amount from start to finish, as they know.
Yeah, and Gen G, if they're going to try any shenanigans in here, yeah, they're just passing through, they're going to drop down a Warden. That is the way
I like it
to handle that, because you absolutely could have been counter-engaged upon if you had stuck around. But no Trundle means that they're not going to stick around for the buff. Just get a nice little ward down.
And we are seeing a whole lot of cookies. No futures market on Ziggs, unfortunately. But he does have Gathering Storm, so that's something. You know, we will take any step forward that we can find. However, with the leash being given over by Fredda Brionne, should be a chance for Gen G to get a lot of early pressure going here. And taking control of this lane early on might mean that it's going to be a lot easier. Clid also starting on top side. So as we expected, pathing away from that sign, as you don't really want to give him any attention, particularly. And we see that outside of that, Omti might pay a visit towards top side. That's the opportunity, but expect Rascal to just be under his turret.
Yeah, he's just going to be, you know, soaking up waves, not really trying to do too much. Just kind of hanging out up there, up on the top side. And, okay, hitting level 2. Very well respected by Henna and Delight. All you got to do down here is Henna and Delight is also kind of just soak waves. You can eventually begin to do some nice poking action. Once Ziggs gets a couple of items, namely that Lost Chapter, which is another good reason why you would mention the futures market, as we do have an Engage coming in here. Henna will be just fine alongside of the Braum.
And that's really good. What I was going on about earlier, we mentioned, yes, this is a teamfight composition, but it's one that comes online very early. And if Clid, this is risky, right? But there is only an exhaust. There's no heal available. If they can get a big wave stacked here, not that many minions as of yet. Clid trying to stay away, might at the very least zone him away from this wave here.
Yeah, could definitely do that, or at least force a teleport perhaps, as we are going to be engaging on in. The satchel is down, but he can't use it to get away. And that is going to be first blood being given over to Light, of all people, as Umti is here. He's going to land that stun, gets a bit of damage down, and here's the teleport now. As Viego at level 3, not exactly the most powerful, and even Umpty has to flash away lest he give the double buff over. So definitely a nice little start here for Gen G.
And that's so well done by Gen G, because they use a multiple set of strengths from the champions. They use the tankiness of Life with his Aftershock and Eclipse to tank multiple turret shots this early on in the game. And then you see, if a kill comes through there, Umpty can actually get a lot more done in that fight. But because of the Light, or rather Hannah already getting taken down and the Light kind of being behind the play, instead Umpty is stuck alone against the Leona and a level 3 Trundle. And let me tell you, level 3 Trundle, not something you generally want to deal with as anyone, let alone as a Viego who is admittedly a pretty decent duelist, but not compared to the Troll. There's a reason why he's as a high priority as he is at the moment.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, in top lane, Rascal's just vibing.
Speaking of priority, Jace on a 7-game winning streak. Jace and Ziggs together 5-1 here in the LCK. As we're going to take another look at this dive. Pretty straightforward on this one.
Yeah, really nicely done. I think Hannah, I see the reason for putting the shield that way, but maybe try and get a little bit of the damage off from Ruler. And here we see just the power of that Trundle in early game. It's just insane, right? Like, there is so much damage that comes through, especially when Leona's there. It's really easy for you to proc a passive repeatedly with the amount of auto resets that you have. And that leads us to a situation in which big early game lead, teleport invested.
Oh man, Rascal is getting in there. He had to flash on the last trade. Hoya's fine to take that trade. I mean, he has teleport. He can just immediately come back to the lane. Rascal takes a bit. Obviously goes back and gets the Bramble Vest. He's going to have a much better time of this lane as things do come along.
Yeah, and I actually don't mind this too much from Rascal, because you force the teleport, which locks Jace into the lane, and I think, yeah, he has it 6. So either if there is a big shove coming through, he can just ult back to lane and be fine. As play comes through here.
It was nicely played by Henna.
Yeah.
It's just like, nope, Ruler does not get to attack any of us.
And this is looking really good. Gen G early game wise, right? Rascal, yeah, he's behind in CS, but still he's doing really decent in the matchup of getting, in a counter matchup rather, with no attention. And yeah, they picked into it, but that's kind of what you know you're getting yourself into when you do pick the Cyan. Rest of the map being handily won by Gen G. BDD just playing neutralizer. As long as Lava is stuck underneath his turret, you're fine, right? You just don't want the Galio to go anywhere. And that's going to take away a lot of value from that pick.
Yeah, absolutely has. This mid lane, Lava is doing a decent job of keeping up in CS. Only about 8 behind at this point in time. But I think for a while here for Bro, they're just kind of going to be hanging out, trying not to die, trying not to get dove again. And letting Ziggs just farm out, letting the Jace do his thing up in the top side. Getting that flash out of Rascal is going to be very good for Hoya, putting on even more pressure.
And you still have to play respectful here as Hoya, and that's kind of the scary thing, because you have a pretty decent vision right now between the 2 control wards that you have. But simultaneously, it only takes a single moment of you not paying attention for Rascal to just press his R button.
Yeah, and speaking of which, I mean, we got the Syndra very close by, and the ultimate will come in, forces that flash away from Hoya, and that's all it takes.
Yeah, and now as Rascal, you hit a Decimating Smash on the wave, and that's pretty much it, right? You're going to be able to sustain up a little bit, and Cyan is getting closer and closer to becoming that immovable brick that he very soon will be. Umpty has focused his attention on the bot side of the map, so I don't think Hoya has gotten the kind of lead that gets you into a position where you can actually threaten a lot more. And it is a nice position for Gen G, because it's not like once they get into actual team fights, they're going to be unhappy about their comp or about the general state of this game, especially with early Infernal getting picked up.
Yeah. Brian trying to make a move on this early Rift Herald, which is a very common move in the LCK, but already the Scout of the Week comes in, Life in the midst of 3 of them, but he's tanking up so much damage. Big Ziggs bomb does come in from afar and will push Gen G off of the play, and Brian will commit to this objective.
And as Gen G now, with rotating up your bot side as well, you're kind of committed to making this work. Still have a lot of ultimates available.
All right, here we go. Gen G is coming in. That Rift Herald is getting dangerously low. Umpty able to take it down, but Gen G just want the fight, and they will wombo combo. The Galio comes in and gets a lot of value with the taunt as well as the ultimate. But still, it is going to be Gen G on the chase here, as it is a 1-for-1 so far, and Umpty is looking to be the number 2, as he is still on the run. As get wrecked by the Pillar of Filth, says Clid, and that is going to be an extra kill on top.
It's peak pillar placement right there. Getting them stuck between the pillar and the wall, beautiful. And if you have a Rascal ultimate here as well, you might feel a little bit better about it, but it is a lot of damage blocking coming through from the Light in combination with a great knockoff and taunt from Lava. And for a second there, it's looking a little dire, because if Umpty can get those resets, this is the type of fight as Gen G. If you lose, you're in a very dire spot. Fortunately for them, the health bars on Fred Brian are very low. I want to hear what Clid says here.
He was just talking about the Rift Herald after, so very, very straightforward. No niceus, no I got him, no trundle noises. We don't have Showmaker in this game. So.
truly a loss to any trundle player if you don't make the accompanying noises, Valdez.
True.
I wonder what other champions, you know, because there's a bunch of them where you can't really do it without annoying your teammates. Because trundle is pretty straightforward, but if you're playing Korean Lissandra...
What about Lulu?
I think it depends on how much anime you consume, whether or not you're okay with that.
You just spam the laugh, but also you're laughing on the voice comms as well at the same time.
Yeah. Who needs clean comms when you can have fun? As this might be, at the very least, some plates getting picked up. BDD almost has teleport available. Don't think they should be able to get first turbo blood here, and it's going to just be a play for the plates.
Yeah, very respectful. Rift Herald drop here. Not really messing around. They have some decent vision in the enemy jungle, as you mentioned before, but you just don't want to get teleported on. You don't want to get rotated on. You're not 100% sure. You just pick up the plates and move on. Definitely 2v1 if no one came up to help. They could have maybe extended for an extra plate, but it's a risk
yeah,
they didn't want to take.
It's also your Viego and Jace into a Cyan that has well a lot of armor if you look at the items.
Yeah.
It's a ton, and we haven't even really talked about this, but Fred Brian's comp also has a real lack of late game consistent AD damage. And yes, Umpty's going to be able to do a little bit, and then of course you have Hoya, but with an armor stacking tank on the other side, especially if Rascal at any point either builds them out or gets an Anathemas and puts it on Ziggs, he's just never gonna die.
Yeah.
Right? It's funny because if you're a Rascal, it's hilarious. But if you're Fred Brian, that is actually a legitimate problem that you don't really have a way of dealing with. The only one that's gonna get even remotely close at that point is gonna be Hannah, who is also itemizing for the Liandry. So I think that's a very good call. But you kind of want to be at an advantage with this comp, right? And they haven't really been able to use Lava. The first couple of skirmishes not really going their way. They might be able to get something on top side here. BDD still has teleport available though, and I think Rascal's just too tanky.
Oh boy. And they're going to go for it. We're going to see if they can actually break through the armor. The answer is Flash is going to win. And the Ziggs trying to finish him off, nearly able to get it, even with the Arcane Comet, but the Ziggs teleport is actually the biggest brain of it all because they're able to pick up that first turret on top of it.
Yeah, it's actually really nicely done. I hadn't checked Anna's teleport, but with that, Fred Brian putting themselves at on the very least even footing with Gen G. And it's a really nice play, but due to the innate awkwardness of this composition from Fred Brian, I don't know how much is going to matter, because a lot of the power of this is also in you can 1-3-1 really well, right? You can sideway or side lane rather. You can clear your waves really well with the Ziggs. It's hard to engage on your 3-man unit with a Brom, and then you can have Hoya in one lane. Maybe you play 1-4 with Lava being able to rotate up and down. But then you look at the amount of hard engage on Gen G. It's like, is that ever going to work? I think they just dive you. They have a Cyan. Rascal's not going to care about turret shots.
Yeah. at a certain point, he will be diving. And you send him in, you have really awesome follow-up with Ashley Ona, Scout of the Week, Pillars. So, as you mentioned, it's going to be difficult for Bro to get away. And they need more of a lead. They still don't have it, right? Gen Z have 2 Drakes. Yeah. They're up 300 gold. It's not much, but it's still even, basically, with Bro. And that is a very comfortable spot here as Gen G. You're just hanging out. You're scaling up. You're getting your Scion to a point where he really is an immovable object. And I think they'll be comfortable as well to fight over these next couple of Drakes and just move along and maybe even pick up Mountain Soul on their way.
And the blade does cut both ways, and that's important to mention as to why we talk about the Fred Brian comp not having, or having damage, but probably not enough to get through the Cyan. As Gen G, your only super reliable source of damage in a fight is also Ruler, right? Later in the game, Klid's going to become kind of a non-factor, and BDD, while his burst will be incredibly strong, he is playing into a Brom and is also going to have similar issues in that he will be very reliant on, does he have his cooldowns up? So that also depends on to what extent Gen G is able to just get onto the enemy backline and just blow up. If you get either Hoya or Hannah, then you'll be fine, right? And they do have a composition to kind of get the dump, but does mean that even more so than usual, Ruler's positioning is going to have to be impeccable this game, because once he gets taken out, so much damage. Yeah, Rascals.
He was just going over there to steal some of the Krugs. Like, he doesn't even care about the damage.
It doesn't have to. Can just ult back to bot lane if he would choose to do so. But no, he cancels back and just continue farming.
Oh, but the damage does come out here. And you see that Diego, Umpty is around. So this will force Rascal off of the turret. And there is no real response right now from the side of Gen G.
It's really nicely done. Because it's going to get them an inner, right? And for the first time, we're going to see Fred Brian dip into an actual lead in terms of gold that comes through. I don't know if it's enough, though, because in a minute the Drake is spawning. Gen G have an insane teamfight comp. This early on, the damage from Klid is still going to be very relevant. And if they get Mountain Soul with this composition, it's real bad, Valdez. It's not a good place to be.
Basically, the way you're going to have to try to team fight it as Fred Brian is hope that you can Shock Blast past the Scion and then throw a Ziggs ult into the back line and hope you do enough damage to basically push Gen G from wanting to fight. Push them away from the fight entirely. If you can't land that poke, you don't really have much going on, and it's going to be a good start here onto BDD.
And Hoya, as we saw just now, is actually very far ahead. I think it's like 1.7k gold that he's up. Doesn't have his second item yet, though, and that would have been a really big spike that could have taken half of BDD's health bar there, right? If he also has the Moramana finished. But he's not that strong just yet, so this fight comes a little bit early for Fred Brian. And as mentioned previously, if Gen G, as long as they can keep Ruler and BDD alive, this comp should be an immovable brick wall. And with no one going down, Umpty loses so much value as well.
Yeah, the Scout of the Weeks aren't hitting. So BDD is really trying to burst someone down to 100% secure this objective for them. Still Gen G's positioning much better right now. Fred Brian had to back out of the river because the Scion threat from the bottom side of the river was too much. So can't exactly just get clapped in that way. Now with the Rift Herald's coming down and the Ziggs bomb coming out. Nice pillar here onto the Galio, but it is Galio after all. They're using a lot of stuff onto him and he just flashes away. And here comes the poke as well. Gen G's still in a better spot, but Fred Brian ready to go. They want to drop the gloves here. Go for the fight. We'll see if it works out. Low-ish health bars on the side of Gen G. But now Klid is just going to get to work onto this dragon as Fred Brian say, okay, you can have it. We'll take the mid-tier 1. Not sure if that's a great trade for Fred Brian.
I can assure you, not the best of trades. not a great trade deal there. But they didn't really have a choice. And there you see that already Gen G's comp can tank so much damage. They're basically an immovable brick wall, right? As long as, even BDD you saw, as long as he has some corrupting pot stacks, he'll be fine. But Ruler went for a very defensive build. He's going to finish his Witsand soon, and it's then going to be even tankier. The shield also gives him sustain. Rascal and Life do not care at all about anything you throw at them, really. And while we saw that Hannah was able to do a lot of damage in terms of absolute numbers, it didn't really mean anything to the relative strength of GNG's teamfight prowess. And then you can't really move up to River because there might be a side, which there was, or a Leona. And then if you walk too close and your backline gets blown up, it is just pretty dunzo. So now it's all point for Gen G. Looking great here in this game. It's not, you know, maybe the aggressive blowout win that you want to see from a truly on-form Gen G, but considering their recent games, I think this is kind of what you need.
Yeah, also they're calm, you know, unless someone on the side of Fred Brion made a big mistake, or if they were able to snowball bigger off of the dive early on in the bottom side, they're not ever really going to blow you out of the water with Sion, so... you know, slow and steady wins the race, I suppose, as here we go. Again, they're not scared to just jump on into these turrets, do a bit of damage, and zone you off of them. The threat is just too high, and Ziggs won't be even that safe under the turret alone.
Rascal making full use of that Sion ultimate there. Just getting a little bit of extra turret damage. And the Light there forced to flash because Life was walking up, and if the Light goes down there, then you lose complete control of your jungle, because then your tankiness is basically fully gone. And all of a sudden, Syndra becomes a much bigger threat. So, thus far, it's a great look from Gen G. But for Fred Brion, it's not quite over yet, and it all starts or ends with Ruler and BDD. If you can pick either of these two targets off, then the Gen G composition loses a lot, and that's why we see Gen G is like, I'm not getting caught. I'm just standing here. I'm staying safe. We're not doing anything. 2.5 minutes, then we move up. Up until that point, do nothing. And as for the Brian, I think it is kind of hard. Maybe you want to go for a Baron play. There's a relative lack of vision. Walking in is actually relatively hard for Gen G if you have a good setup, if you can throw a couple of Ziggs bombs, get side lane pressure. But if you don't do that, which I think, knowing Fred Brian, they won't, we're going to just scale 2 minutes down the line into a fight for soul.
Yeah, and the fact that the fight for soul is going to happen this early on is pretty nice for Gen G. I don't think, you know, let's say we were at 38 minutes and Ziggs had 4 items and Jace had 5. Like, there is a chance that maybe you just blow up Ashe. And then it's like, okay, the fight starts at 5v4, right? The comp is very nice front to back. It's got a decent amount of scaling on the side of Gen G as well, but like, there are some fights later on in the game that Fred Brion can, I don't want to call it cheese, but it's just like the gigantic amount of poke that you can throw it together can just win you some fights if you execute it well. But we're going to have the soul fight in 2 minutes. So we're not really going to get there, are we? As Kled is going to cheekily smite away the red buff. Just another small win here for Gen G.
And Amti also forced to flash there. And I'm actually loving the side lane play that's coming through from Hoya, as has an insane amount of damage here.
Yeah, this is actually potentially killing damage, as Ruler was hanging on over down to the bottom side. You do get the Sion a bit low, and again, that pressure is up. Hoya has teleport. It's going to get even more obnoxious as Jace gets items. But again, Rascal, he's working on his second one as well.
It doesn't even have Surreal Dust yet. And that's, I think, the impressive part. The problem for him is that Sion is gonna... It's too much, right? Like, it's so hard to, up until the very late game, reliably be able to do it, even with Conqueror, even if you are this far ahead, just because of how powerful Soul Furnace with armor stacking is. And I don't know how much longer Hoya is going to be able to keep doing this. However, his damage on the backline of the enemy will remain impeccable. And now, big spikes have been hit for Fred Brion, right? 2 items on Jace, Last Whisper as well. Hannah has his Seraph's Embrace as well as the Liandry. So if you do find some key amounts of poke, and Gen G are a little bit slow on pulling this off.
Speaking of poke,
I don't know if that's considered poke. I think that's just an attempt to one-tap Hoya.
Yeah.
Man.
By the way, there were 3 scans that were used by Gen G. They spotted the Galio easily, and 0 of this poke is landing. That arrow is going to go totally wide, but now they're between a rock and a hard place as the Sion catches them from the top side. The Jace immediately dies, as we kind of saw the two-part story to that one, BDD to start it. And yep, 2 free kills for Gen G. They will pick up the Mountain Soul and waltz over to the Baron or wherever else they want to go on this rift.
And I am fairly certain that that might be the nail in the coffin. It's not the most eventful game, unfortunately, here, Valdez, but it is a clean one from Gen G. You know, they're not taking any losing plays. They are playing it as, oh, I don't think you win that, Umti. I think
no.
Klit's still very mad at everyone, generally, as he is the Trundle, as, yeah, Lava can't really join the fight. Sure, you get the miss. Not able to get a lot done more, but a really nice flank from Rascal, being that far up into the river. When you know where the Sion is, as Freda Brion, just not quite going to work out, and this is where we get into the harder part of this composition if you're not really ahead, and a single amount of poke is going to immediately blow someone up, right? Like, even if someone gets hit on Gen G, they can take 1 or 2 bombs. They can take 1 or 2 empowered shock blasts and still be able to fight. And as long as they're still there and can sustain back up, not really going to contest anything as Freda Brion. And now you have a front-to-back teamfight composition with 2 damage dealers that are feeling great, and the most amount of front line that you could possibly imagine. It's Sion with Mountain, so I don't.
There's no.
I feel like I'm over-explaining it, Val. That's just like, it's a big tanky boy, and he also has the soul that makes him even worse to kill.
He's got thick armor on top of it, with the big shield.
Yep.
As well. Yeah, it's pretty nice. Considering the way this game went, the Sion is working out very, very well. As you mentioned, you know, you eventually kind of neutralize the Jason lane, and we are going to have a little engage here as Zumpty will get caught. You can see the obnoxious amount of lockdown that Gen G have in their comp right now, as in will go the Sion, and yes, life is going to get low, but that doesn't matter because everybody else on the side of Freda Brion is on the run. And the engage never ends. The pillar comes down, the Sion's in your face, he's gonna stop the Justice Punch, and Lava will eventually go down as well. That will be the clean ace to the side of Gen G. Nobody dies, and they should push for the win.
You're not allowed to walk into a funnel, into a brawl, Jason Ziggs, but doesn't matter with how far ahead Gen G already is. Not the fastest pace, but a very clean, dominating, and controlled win. And I think as Gen G, this is the best look that you could have. Only thing that would be better is, you know, the classic stuff. But still, it's 27 minutes. You have a team fight comp.
Yeah.
And you never at any point in this game looked like you were even remotely